All right, on to the second story topic for tonight, and that and it is nationwide news, and that is the conviction and sentencing of former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger. For those of you who need a quick refresher, Amber Geiger was formerly an officer in the Dallas Police Department, and coming off a long shift, she entered what she believes to be her apartment, and finding the actual tenant there sitting, watching TV, and she ends up shooting him. And she after she gets charged, and then she has a trial, and she's ultimately convicted of murder.
There was. I remember when that story first broke.
Mm-hmm.
There was, they're just gonna probably give her a slap on the wrist, and I know it was manslaughter was gonna be considered.
Well, I think that's where a lot of people were thinking it was gonna go, because she's a police officer, but I think because this wasn't on a call, this was her coming off a shift, and going back to her home. It's a completely different context, as opposed to if she was, she arrives on the scene and there's a suspect, and the suspect, is either not non-compliant, or causing a ruckus. I think because the contexts were different, so I guess the application of justice was different.
Yeah. This story is a horrible tragedy all around, because I think she seemed genuinely horrified that this happened. But at the same time, you also have an innocent man who, it's just he's just sitting at home having a bowl of ice cream, and then his life's over. It's this is just a horrible tragedy. No way, whichever way you look at it, it's terrible.
Right.
And it's. I mean, I don't even know what to think about it. It's just not that it seems so plausible that that could have been a mistake. You're depending on you've worked all this time, and you're so exhausted, and you think that you're in one place, and you're not, and and you make that mistake.
Right, and I think. Yeah, a lot of people were maybe unconvinced of her story. It's I thought it was my apartment. It's how does someone not know where they live? But I think it was demonstrated that that she's not the only person that's done this. Notwithstanding her her compromised, cognitive state.
Right.
I think that they said that that multiple residents of that apartment building have done the same thing, where they got off on the wrong floor, and have gone off the wrong floor, thinking that it was their floor, because I think there isn't too much of a difference between the floors.
Right. Yeah. So
in terms of maybe layout and look. So So again, notwithstanding her compromised cognitive state, this isn't completely an outlandish thing to happen, and it has happened to other people as well that live in the apartment building.
But I mean, obviously, someone still at the end of the day is dead.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't deserve to die,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's like that's gonna haunt her for the rest of her life, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I remember like when that story broke, like the way that the story was presented, and like, yeah, it was kind of, yeah, sure, she, forgot where she walked into the wrong apartment, and
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people, even, whether it be, liberal or conservative, or whoever, like a lot of them are like kind of scoffed at her excuse, but the more news that came out about that story, it's like, it's plausible. Only God knows what was on her heart that day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's just that story kind of like, yeah, that was just a terrible story. But it does have like a little bit of kind of a lot of grace was shown, I think,
Right.
in the
I
end.
mean, throughout,
God showed
yeah.
through.
Even though this is a very dark, time for this woman and for the, victim's family, there was, one ray of light with, in the midst of the darkness. That, that is this, that is this case, that is, this tragedy, and that is the brother of the victim, you know, uh, forgiving Amber Geiger for the murder of his brother, and even going as far as, embracing her in the courtroom. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, it did choke me up some, something fierce. Um, it did bring tears to my eyes just to see, the radical love, that this man showed this woman, the woman who just, it wasn't as though like this was during the trial and it was still kind of like up in the air and there wasn't a verdict. There was already a verdict. The jury came back and yes, like this woman, we find this woman guilty of murder. So she is a convicted murderer.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and then, I think this is about like the sentencing phase where, I think both sides, like, for the defense and against the defense get to, go up, take the stand and kind of make their case about, what kind of punishment she should get. But for the victim's brother to go up there and, and just say, I forgive you, I love you, and then, asking permission from the judge, if he could give her a hug, and then them coming together and embracing, and him showing that again radical kind of love and forgiveness, the same radical love and forgiveness that Jesus, bestows on all who call upon him, was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, and it's like I was listening to that, and if I was in his shoes, I don't know if I would have the same. I don't know if I could say I'd do the same thing,
Right.
because
I mean, if I wasn't, if someone murdered, one of my sisters, heaven forbid, and I had to face, and I had to face the the convicted the convicted person. I don't know if I'd be able to say, I forgive you, I love you, you're my brother, you're my brother now. I don't know if I'd be able to demonstrate that kind of radical love, even though, as a Christian, we're called to do that all the time. Um,
yeah, and it's like that's the struggles, because
yeah, and again, that's our struggle.
in easier times, I mean, even in like kind of the tough circumstances we find ourselves in, I can't say I've been put in a situation where I've had to, hug the person and forgive the person that's killed someone close to me. That's extreme.
Yeah.
And the fact that he did that is, man, that is such a, that's a man of God right there.
Absolutely.
That stood by his convictions, and even says like, I don't even want you to go to jail. Like it's
Right.
just,
Yeah.
and I think the one thing that we can take away from this, because to be honest, I think that she genuinely is, horrified about what happened, and she's, she could just go back to that day, and obviously, I don't think that was her goal. Like, I don't think she was trying to kill someone or
Right.
murder someone um, in her apartment building.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know initially it was tried to, oh, it's a race thing, and
Right. Yeah, and
all
they're
these
like
different,
trying. Yeah, they're trying to.
because
They
this,
pulled her like phone records and like she was texting with like her lover or something, and like she had
right.
she had said like some seemingly racist thing over like text messages, and it's just like, it's like, don't bother me with that noise, right? It's just like,
Yeah, because there was that, and I think this story also came out with like when there was there was a lot of extra tension in that direction, especially between cops and black people. So
right. I think it was because it was last year, and I think there were a lot of, well, at least it seemed there was a seemingly large amount of kind of death by cop
right,
situations. So it's this was just kind of like another story. That was it was this was kind of like another story on on top of the pile that was last year.
right. But I think what's the good that can come out of this is that maybe this was something that this tragedy might be used for good, by God, in that, maybe this is something that is allowing this woman to, to come to Christ and to,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this turns her life around. Obviously, I
Right.
mean,
That's what the brother said to her on the stand, where it's like just give your life to Christ. What you've done, you can't be undone. So all you can do now is like go move forward and live for Christ, and you know uh, live for him every single day. Right.
right? It's like and when we as Christians, when we say that, like I said, it in God's eyes, yes, it wipes the slate clean. But obviously, like we're still in this world at this time, and while our spiritual condition has changed, our consequences in this world, we still have to live by those, and that will be something that she has to live with for the rest of her life. But that is, and she has to face the consequences of what happened. Although, albeit it was a tragic accident. At least I believe that's what it was, and yeah, hopefully this is something that a lot of good can come out of this. Changing that woman's life, Amber Geiger, for good, and maybe it spawns something else where she's able to reach other people with the gospel and kind of spread that kind of a little bit more God around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Really quickly. That all being said, I think you know this is this is a case that I think also demonstrate that puts a fine point on the kind of double standard within criminal justice system, in
Mm-hmm.
that she was originally supposed to get life, or at least like 98 years or something, which is essentially a life sentence. um, but it was then dropped. It was then advised that they give her 28 years. And that was a very arbitrary and symbolic number, in that 28 was how old the victim was going to be.
Right.
So it doesn't like really make sense. Um, especially like with like our legal system, the way it's set up, and like mandatory like minimums and that kind of thing. But she ended up getting only 10 years. With the possibility of parole in 5. And I think this again, this just kind of puts a fine point on kind of again the double standard between men, the sentencing disparity between men and women.
Like, how so? Yeah, explain that a little bit more.
Well, because what is it? I forget what. Again, I can't. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers in front of me. But the disparity of like sentencing, like for similar crimes between men and women, is vast. Like someone, a man who's charged with manslaughter, manslaughter would get like 30 years, and the woman would get like 15.
I see.
Right. So
Yeah,
again, so I don't mean to take away like the goodness of you know of what transpired, of like with the brother forgiving Amber Geiger and all that kind of stuff, but again, prior to recording this, I did tell you I was of two minds of this. Of course, yes, I'm deeply heartened, and I'm deeply heartened by seeing this radical act of forgiveness by the brother towards her. But then also, if the police officer was a male, would he have been given such a light sentence?
probably not.
Right. I mean, because there's like also video, there's also video of like a bailiff, fixing Amber Geiger's hair to make her look more presentable. And then afterwards, you had the judge come down off the bench to embrace Geiger, and then also give her her personal Bible.
I don't think that if
Yeah, I
it
mean,
had
again,
been
if it was a man, would he have gotten similar treatment,
probably not.
or leniency in this case?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that. Yeah, that's
that is kind of an unfortunate truth to that too, because there is a lot of disparity, like even among like men too, like the way like the sentencing works, it's real wackadoo. And like, there's some people that like honestly like should be in, well, should be dead, but they should be at least in prison for the rest of their life, because there's no amount of rehab or whatever that's going to fix them, and so they're a detriment to society. But it's like, oh no, 5 years, 6 years, that it's like, well, 6 years is going to make them even nothing's going to change with this person, like, and he's just going to be set free and do it again. Whereas there's other people who get these vast sentences who it's like it's not the crime doesn't, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. It's really it's really weird. I don't like the way that we sentence people.
right. Yeah, it's especially like the victim impact statements that are allowed to be given. I mean, I do understand, because I do kind of have a personal experience with that, because I know a guy who went to jail, who went to prison for 10 years.
Damn.
Yeah. What is it? I don't remember what the charge was. I think it was like man 2.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was around someplace where someone died, and he may or may not have been
involved.
Been involved. So I think yeah. So I know it wasn't murder. So it might have been like man 2. but I remember, and he was a and he was someone in the church with me. And I remember the pastor asking for members of the congregation to write a letter on behalf of this person. Um, and I mean, when it all went down, I was much younger than this guy, and he was very nice to me. He'd always talk to me. He'd always engage with me, and he was very older brother like.
Right.
Right, and so like for me to hear that he was part of this, it was really hard to understand or even comprehend. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean I understand. I mean again, it's kind of it's kind of a blessing that he was sentenced as for as much as he was. Um, you know, but he's out. He in going in. It actually did some good. He found his way back to Christ. He after getting out, he turned his life around. You know, so
Yeah. It's I mean, it's not a problem that we're gonna solve tonight, more than
right,
likely.
yeah,
um,
not likely.
but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tragedy to this particular story, but
Mm,
I think there's a lot of good that came out of it too,
yeah,
or can come out of it.
right, yes, and and again, it also again it kind of points out the hypocrisy within our legal system.
Right?
And
Yeah, it does expose a lot.